And we are resuming our agenda at item 4. There is no action to be taken on matters discussed in closed session, so we will proceed to agenda item 5, which is our opening exercise and pledges. Mr. Wheeler.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Cordell, cabinet members, and community members. I am joined today by Andy Choi. Andy is a member of the class of 2025, so congratulations on your recent graduation. While at Lovejoy High School, he was a member of our speech and debate team, the National French Honor Society, the National Honor Society, and he competed for the cybersecurity team. And later today, you'll see he's being recognized in our UIL academics. He was also a member of our bond planning committee, and after graduation plans to attend Amherst College under its open curriculum with hopes to enroll in law school for his graduate studies. And the last time I talked to Andy, you mentioned that you wanted to go into educational law. Is that still the case?
Educational policy is a passion of mine, yeah.
All right.
We'll see what happens.
All right. So welcome, Andy Choi.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated.
Andy, Mr. Wheeler's going to give you your certificate, and we're going to get a picture. Oh, did we take?
I think I took
I'm going to shake your hand, and we're going to give you a certificate when you come up for your recognition. Let's get your picture real quick.
Thank you so much.
We've got to have it for the. Come on in now. It's all up here. It's going to be easy. Look and see if you're doing. Congratulations again. Absolutely. You'll be back up here soon tonight, huh? We'll see you in a minute.
Thank you. We are now at agenda item 6, recognition. So we begin each meeting by recognizing the successes of our students, staff, and schools because they are at the heart of our mission as a board. These moments remind us why we're here, to support educational excellence, student success, and the strength of our district. First up will be our student recognitions. You're back up, Mr. Wheeler. Or Dr. Sambesi, either one.
Yeah, absolutely. Members of the board, Superintendent Cordell, thank you for having us tonight. As we've covered, tonight we'll have student recognitions, and Mr. Wheeler is going to take over and introduce our UIL academic state qualifiers.
And I will actually pass it off to our UIL academic sponsor, Mrs. Anderson.
Hello, board, members of the community. I'm Cheryl Anderson. I am the academic coordinator for Lovejoy High School, and it is an honor to work with all of our coaches, but also with all of our students. Most of the students who work in the UIL program don't just work in one program. They compete in multiple programs, and so I think you'll see that with some of the honors that are being held for tonight. So our first group is not here, but Mr. Mueller, the high school, he teaches APUSH, right? Yes, APUSH. I didn't know which history he did. Had a student get to state, Bryce Brissett, and he competed at state and won 25th in the entire state in social studies. He was also 5th place team in the computer science written. I'm not sure that's correct. No, 5th place in regionals. So Bryce Brissett led by David Mueller. The other team that we have here is for computer science. The computer science was mostly led by Shalok, and I'm going to say his name once for you. Shalok Navanitha Krishnan won second place in the state for computer science. He got third place in computer science written in the state of Texas and fifth place team in computer science written. And his teammates, Nolan Finnegan, Justin Mao, and Braden Muriello. So Justin is here tonight. As some of you may know, we had a turnover in our computer science teacher, and so it is truly a testament to this team that they held together and taught each other and challenged each other to get as far as they did in state. So we're really proud of them. I coach 3 different teams, and one of those teams is current events. So it's current issues and events. And Andy is one of the students in my AP seminar and AP research classes who I hear talking to other students about all the things going on in the news. So I tapped him and said, hey, would you like to do this? And he said, absolutely. And I didn't have to do much to convince him because he is so into everything that is going on in the world and not just politically. And so Andy led our team to win district. And then you took second place in regionals, and so went to state where he earned 19th place in current events in the state of Texas. So Andy. Sorry.
Wonderful. Now, next up will be our district recognitions. Ms. Koenig.
I'm actually going to take this one because we are celebrating Mrs. Koenig, as well as the rest of the communications team, who is small but mighty, because Lovejoy ISD has been recognized by the National School Public Relations Association for outstanding work in communication and engagement. We received the Excellence Award for our 2024 annual report, which we call the Living Lovejoy, Who We Are publication, and then the Merit Award for our marketing materials for the 2024 Summer Activity Guide, and then we received an honorable mention for our district newsletter, Connect with Katie. I want to celebrate, congratulate, recognize, and appreciate our communications department because Mrs. Koenig, not only does she fulfill leadership in all of the human resources capacity, she also has communications under her umbrella. We have Ms. Steiner, who is with us part-time, and Ms. Dodge as well, and they do some incredible work to have a district our size that is able to have the communications and marketing function that we have is a testament to their professionalism, their hard work, and their creativity, and we are grateful, very well deserved.
Thank you.
I was so excited when I heard about this. So, I mean, communication is such a challenging area to get right. But of course, it's so important for us to stay informed with all of the amazing things going across Lovejoy. And clear and consistent communication is how we build trust and transparency with our community. So on behalf of the board, we are so proud of how Lovejoy uses these quality communications to share information, celebrate achievements, and keep our families connected. And we're grateful to our communications team for their thoughtful and creative work. It's really exciting to see it recognized at this level. So congratulations.
Take you to a picture.
Yay! Agenda item 7 is public comments related to June 16th, 2025 agenda items. Ms. Taylor, do we have any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Wonderful, so we will move right along to agenda item 8, which is our invocation. Mr. Bobo, would you please lead our invocation?
Bow with me. Dear God, we are so grateful for all of our graduates from last year, all of their successes, and all of the staff that helped them achieve that success. Thank you so much for all that wonderful time that we've had with these students, and we wish them the best as they continue on in their future endeavors. Be with us as we travel over the summer. Many of our families are going to be traveling. Be with them that they're safe and secure, and come back so we can enjoy another year with our wonderful students and staff. Definitely be with our staff as they plan for our next school year, so we have a great start to the school year and another successful year under our belt. In Jesus' name, amen.
Agenda item 9, board notifications. Your board book for the meeting today contains notifications for new hires, resignations, public information requests, and our cabinet reports. Are there any questions or comments on these items? Wonderful. We will move forward. Agenda item 10 is our consent agenda. So your board book for the meeting today contains consent agenda items, including prior meeting minutes and our monthly financial report. Item E is a pass-through payment, has no impact to our district budget. However, the size of the remittance to the College Board triggers board approval. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a trustee would like pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the consent items as presented.
So moved, Mr. Owens.
Second.
Second, Mr. Wheelis? Yes? It's been a long day. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 11, presentation on board policy updates related to TASB localized number update, number 125. Ms. Taylor.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Cordell. This is just a presentation this evening to reflect the update sent by TASB. It's number 125. And on here, I just have the reference of the legal and local policies, which we know well, and that these would be the impacted policies regarding update 125 for your review. And we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? So trustees, we will have the opportunity to reflect on these proposed changes over the next couple of weeks, and they will be placed on a future board agenda for consideration and vote. Agenda item 12, 2025 bond update. Mr. Willman. Well,
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Cordell. So this evening, we have Mr. Doug Witt. He's a senior managing director at Samco Capital, and he's here with us tonight to present on legislative update related to Senate Bill 4 and the Lovejoy's bond program. So, Mr. Witt, thank you.
Good evening. It's good to be with you again. I do have an information item tonight. Board action will occur later in the summer, and we'll go through that schedule. And speaking of the microphone.
Is it not on? Okay. Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. And do you have the control? Okay. All right. Okay, so we're on the first slide. So again, tonight is information item. Once we have a bond issue passed, there's a lot of details that go into the first installment of bonds that are issued, It's coordinated with other items, including the primary factor of why we're here tonight is that you have facility needs that need to be addressed. So with that, I'd like to start by reviewing the bond election parameters. You had 265 million plus in Proposition A, which I call General Facilities Plus. Then you had 3.9 million in Proposition B, Technology, thank you. Million five, Proposition D, Athletic, and 700,000 Proposition E, Auditorium. So those will be the propositions that we draw funds from every time we issue bonds and identify which of those propositions we will be utilizing in each bond installment. The overwhelming majority of school districts that have passed a bond issue, and particularly one of this size, will issue their bonds in multiple installments over time, okay? The second bullet point is the assumed taxable value was $3.9 billion in 2024-25, and you say, why is that an assumption? Well, we began planning the financial component to this bond program early, and we did not have certified value at the time, so we had to make an assumption. Planned use of excess INS fund balance, you'll see that from me momentarily. We've done this in the past with existing bonds where we've had some excess INS fund balance and we've utilized that to pay down on debt early. This will allow us to amortize bonds early and be consistent with the useful life of the assets that we're financing. So that will be a part of the program and an ongoing part of the program. The INS tax rate, of course, is to remain at 50 cents. The amortization, as I just mentioned, consistent with the various types of assets being financed. You, like many districts, have a bundle of projects that you need to accomplish, anywhere for such things as technology, all the way up to new building structures. And so there is a different useful life to each of those assets, and therefore the plan of finance must match that particular bundle of assets. And then, of course, the last bullet point, bonds issued and projects completed as the tax base allows. This is not a short-term bond program. It's a medium to long-term bond program, and continuous tax-based growth is a part of your ongoing bond capacity as we move forward. Okay, so with that said, an update on the next slide. You've seen the graph from me. There we go. You've seen the graph from me before. This is that bond buyers index of municipal bonds. Bottom left corner is January of 2001. So a 25-year history roughly of interest rates. Again, just to repeat, record low in 2020 at 2%, average across the middle in blue at 4%, record high at 8%. The 2020 was government intervention in our financial markets. 2008 was a Wall Street meltdown and a liquidity crisis, housing crisis, and again, the average there. So up until recently, we've been hovering around averages. Right now, we're a little above averages. We do have functioning markets. They're just at what some people would characterize as normal interest rate levels and not these artificial levels that have been before. But we're selling bonds every week with Texas schools in the market. They're being absorbed. There will be a very, very busy market, a crowded market, if you will, this summer, and I'll talk about the timing. In general, May bond elections, most districts will sell bonds in July, August, September. In this particular summer, because we're coming off a legislative session and there is a deadline, we will back that up and squeeze that 3 months down into about 6 weeks, not just for this district, but for many districts in the state of Texas, and I'll cover that. But with that said, our 30-year bonds are selling at right around 5% average rate. Our 25-year bonds right around 4.75% average rate. We ran these numbers at those types of levels, so we're going to be on target. This is a long-term plan. But I don't think this should take you away from entering the market. There will be other incentives. Timing the market is impossible. Anyone that tells you they can perfect this market is not telling the truth. I can speak from experience that you wake up, no one ever predicted we would be at a 2% index in 2019 in this particular as an example. So with that said, we do have very robust, very large investor attention. We will test that this summer as we bring billions of dollars of Texas schools to market. But there is active purchases, active market. Districts are in the market every week. On the next slide, There's a reason, by the way, when you look at that slide as to why people look at us and say, oh, Doug, you're so conservative with your numbers. It's because we don't control things, and when they shoot up like that, we need to be able to respond to that. And if you're conservative up front, that's a minor impact on you. If some district was trying to get it down to where we were at current market and didn't build in cushion to the interest rates, then they're looking and they're thinking, well, where are we going to cut because rates are a little bit higher than what we were thinking they might be. All right, on the next page, credit ratings. This is recent credit ratings. Again, we sell the bonds with AAA rating based upon the permanent school fund guarantee. We have made application on your behalf, which we can do after a successful bond election and prior to the end of the month, so we did that in May. That will get us the AAA rating. We carry ratings from both Moody's and S&P. The underlying credit ratings, as I've mentioned to you all in the past, are very, very good. For a district of this size, with limited commercial base, to have a AA credit quality is outstanding. That's a testament to how you manage your money here in this district with all of the things you have to deal with, from state law to enrollment, et cetera. So you get high marks from the credit rating agencies. What they cite there: strong wealth and income indices, strong tax-based growth, stable financial profile with prudent use of reserves, trend of declining enrollment. That's a challenge that we've had to manage here. Y'all know better than us. But that's one of the items that is in there. And then the rating category is high investment grade. In case there's any wonder what this means, it means it's a very high investment grade rating from the agencies. We will go back to them with our next installment of bonds and go through the process where they will update your audit, your budgets that you are adopting tonight, and our bond program, and they will analyze that and release a new rating this summer. Okay, so back to the taxable value history. I think it's important to kind of tell you where we are because it kind of ties into the state legislation. So the numbers in black in column 2 are actual numbers, net taxable value after freeze provided to us by the appraisal district and by the comptroller's office. So when you look at that down at the last black number in column 2 at $4 billion, that's actually north of that number that I just gave you in the assumption. So we are ahead of schedule on our existing tax base. And then the 25-26 tax base that in red is preliminary. You know this, we received a preliminary value in April. We will not receive a certified value until July. The appraisal district is working diligently to get all of the taxing entities a taxable value, but they're doing it in the midst of a changing law. So as you well know, the homestead exemption is again going up, this time from $100,000 to $140,000. That $40,000 increase takes away some of your value that you would otherwise have, and the state provides a hold harmless. Now, most of the people in this room know that hold harmless is never dollar for dollar, and that will be true going forward. But they do provide hold harmless, and the hold harmless is based on a date, and I will go through those dates momentarily. But back to the taxable value in column 2, even with an increase to the homestead exemption, you still are increasing in your value. So we're reaching those benchmarks that we want to see in this district because we have these bonds to sell over time as the tax base changes, okay? And so out of the blocks, we're good with 24-25, we're good with 25-26, and that's the trend levels that we want to see. On the next page, reiterating what we talked about before, you have been one of those districts that receive a AA rating because you manage your long-term debt very well. And so in column 4, your INS fund balance, when it's gotten up, we've used it to pay down on bonds early. Y'all have had the slides of that. You've had the conversation of that. You've had the results of that. So I think that's well established. In 24-25, you will have another surplus in the year that we're in. That money will also be planned to be used as part of this program. In this case, we may shift away from paying off existing bonds with that and amortizing new bonds early. And so that's a decision that we will make as we move forward, but there will be planned use of that, keeping it down around that $2 million level over time. On the next slide, approaching optional redemption dates. It's really not news for tonight and the upcoming summer plan, but I do want to keep you informed of that. When you look at the first column, there's a series of bonds that are outstanding. Most of them are pretty small in column 2, except for the $33 million of 2016 refunding. And so you look at the optional redemption call date. The first 4 are callable now on any date, and we've utilized that in the past for early redemption. The 2016, the bigger one, becomes callable February of 2026. That's consistent with that standard kind of 10-year optional redemption feature for 20, 25, and 30-year bonds, okay? So that bond cannot, if you look at the far right column, cannot be refunded on a tax-exempt basis until October of 2025 under federal tax law. Again, it's not really a candidate for much refundings going on right now because interest rates have elevated here in the recent past. But it is one that we want to keep an eye on. The 2017 bond is only $8 million. It does have a few coupons that are at 5%. So there's not a lot of detail here. This is intended to be a slide. Not all of these bonds are outstanding at 5%. In fact, most of them are not. There are a handful in each of these series of bonds that has a 5% coupon. Those are the ones we've been targeted for redemption. I can envision a situation where interest rates stabilize or come back down, and we do what we call a cherry pick refunding of each of these series of bonds, where we go in and we capture the 5% coupon for each series, and we refinance that at lower rates. So that could be in your future, but that's a decision for a later date. The key here is that it's October of 2025 before we can even start talking about it, and that's well after the deadline that's going to be given for your new money portion for your first installment from the bonds that were just approved by the voters. So I don't want to come back in October and you say, Doug, weren't you just here a few months ago? And I'm saying, yes, and it's, what are we talking about? And it would be something like this that we would be discussing. All right, so here's our outstanding debt service profile. In many meetings, I would be talking about installments. We are not there yet. You have a large number of propositions. You have a large number of projects. You have some decision-making to do with the administration about where we go from here. What I'm illustrating here is that because of your debt management over time, you have a tremendous amount of bond capacity. Not enough to go out and sell all of the bonds all at once. I don't think that would be prudent. But you have bond capacity to start and get yourself started on your priorities of projects that have been approved by the voters and that are needed for your academics. So with that said, you can see there that your estimated revenues are up there above 20 million. Your payments are below that. We will be filling in that gap this summer with a principal and interest payment on your first installment of bonds, trying to balance that budget, having amortization in the future years that allow bond capacity for the second installment, the third installment, et cetera. We don't have that plan of finance for you tonight because things are moving quickly. To say it politely is that if you look at the number of projects that you have, you've identified your needs, but you probably haven't at the board level identified the priorities of those needs and when they're going to occur. So some people would say, Doug, you're financing something that we haven't decided. Yes, there's some truth to that, but that's very common in our world, okay? So we're going to buy you time to make decisions on your projects and treat that with as much time as you need in working with the administration. But you do need to come out of the blocks with a financing that precedes those decisions for a couple of reasons. Number one is that we set our budget and tax rate only one time a year, this summer. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between your agreement to what we're going to construct, for example, or acquire, and our need to sell bonds into the tax base and the tax rate for this summer, okay? My job is to make sure that that first installment provides you the flexibility to make the decisions that you need to make for those projects. But we oftentimes precede actual decisions. I'll give you another example. If this was just a bond election where you were building a middle school, okay? If the bond election just passed in May, you have 6 months of design at a minimum before you start bulldozing dirt or buying steel or whatever. You have 6 months. we're selling bonds way in advance of that, even though your draws or your need for money are 6 months down the road. So this is very common for us. But again, I'm not preempting your decision-making or your work with your administration of what your priorities are. What we're trying to do tonight is meet budget, tax rate, and also Senate Bill 4 to get some hold harmless from that increase to the homestead exemption, and you have the bond capacity to do that. So now I'll flip to the next page. Senate Bill 4 update. As you well know, as I just mentioned, Senate Bill 4 increases the homestead exemption from 100 to 140,000. It was just a year ago that we were going from 40,000 to 100,000. So big changes in the homestead exemption. In 2023, when they went from 40 to 100, what the hold harmless provision to that increased homestead exemption, so give the taxpayers a break, but give the school district the money for that break. Otherwise, if you took that away, we'd have to raise the tax rate to miss the revenue. So we're going to give the taxpayers a break. We're going to give the districts the money for that break so that they can keep their tax rate the same. Well, in 2023, the hold harmless provision had the provision for May 23 bond election. So bonds that were authorized in May of 23 were held harmless, even if I haven't issued them yet. So if I go out next year and issue a school district's bonds that were voted in May of 23, I will get that tranche of hold harmless on that. If I issue it next year, I will not get the tranche of hold harmless from Senate Bill 4 this year. In 2025, it put the deadline for bonds issued on or before August of 2025. So again, as much as I would like to kind of wait and we'll try to work the program and make some priorities, we might sell bonds in August and September, that's going to be too late to get hold harmless. It's not a massive amount of money, but it is enough money, and it's enough money over a long period of time, 25 to 30 years, that if we don't try to capture some of that hold harmless, you will be second-guessed as to what you're doing, and we don't want that. I can't go out and sell all bonds. You wouldn't be able to pay for them. You wouldn't be able to pay for them under 50 cents. But we can go out and sell a tranche of bonds and installment of bonds and capture this hold harmless. So that's what fourth bullet point says. So what I'm balancing is how many bonds do we need? We don't really want to have $200 million of bonds outstanding just paying interest when we don't need to spend that money. But at the same time, I need to have some amount of bonds outstanding to get the hold harmless and to get you started on your projects. And we're selling bonds for this type of district about once every 12 to 18 months. Really 12 months is what I would put the standard at. So when we sell this first installment of bonds, it's going to be enough money to get you through 12 months, and then you'll be reevaluating the second installment with next year's tax base, right? How much money you spent, what your priorities are, et cetera. So this will be an ongoing iterative process. I tell people all the time, I get smarter every year that goes by. I really don't. Most people that know me say you're really not getting smarter. But for your data, like right now, we don't have the July certified value. We only have our estimates that you saw in red based on your preliminary estimate and some calculations for hold harmless, for homestead exemption by us. We don't have that certified value. By July 25th, I will become smarter because then I will have your certified value. And if you roll that forward 12 months later, I will be smarter again when I get that next certified value and see how much you have grown in your tax base and therefore how much affordability you have in your bond capacity. And our ultimate ongoing process is going to be merging bond capacity with facility needs and facility improvements. Okay? All right, next slide. Factors affecting the timing of the issuing of bonds. Construction fund needs. That's obviously a driving force. The only reason we're here tonight is that we have facility needs. The second bullet point is federal tax law. Even if I wanted to go out and you had the bond capacity to sell all of your bonds, we could not meet federal tax law. Federal tax law gives us two primary components. We have to have a binding obligation for 5%, not an expenditure for 5%, not an expenditure of 5% of the entire authorization, just that installment, but a binding obligation of 5% within the first 6 months. Generally in Texas, that's really made up of the architect contract. They're usually about 6% of a construction project, and so we normally can check that federal tax law off. The second one is to have reasonable expectation to spend the proceeds within 3 years. I don't think anyone in this room would say we have reasonable expectation that we're going to spend all of that money in the next 3 years, right? And so that is one item that we need to meet, and it's high on the priority list because we do not want the Internal Revenue Service coming in and auditing us and saying, why did you issue $200 million of bonds and in the first 3 years you only spent 50 and you have 150 million outstanding? They don't like that because in many cases we can invest that 150 million at federal treasury rates while we're paying Texas school district rates at a lower level than them. So that's why they want us to sell bonds as needed for construction. The third bullet point is state law, what I just mentioned. I think we need to issue some bonds this summer for that hold harmless, but I don't think we need to issue all of them, obviously. And over the next 30 days, we will be crunching numbers with your administration to come up with an exact plan of how much we're drawing from each proposition. It will not be an exact science. Please don't put that pressure because they're working as fast as they can under uncertain environments, and we're trying to merge my need to pull some bonds from a proposition versus their needs to identify needs and study those items and make good decisions with good data. So it will be more artwork in this first process than it will be exact science in terms of merging my needs with the facility needs. And then tax base and bond model capacity. I just showed you have bond capacity. That's no secret here. I just illustrated that with the first one. There are some districts that I have, and they're not far from here, where they just voted bonds in May, and they will not sell bonds until they have their certified value, because that new certified value is what's going to determine whether or not they have bond capacity, okay? And you just take a fast-growing district just north of here, and you're going to find those districts that are needing certified values before they can sell their next installment of bonds. That's not this district. The last bullet point, bond repayment structures and cash flows, I just alluded to that. Even if we could sell all of the bonds, and even if you were going to spend all of that bond money in 3 years, I still would be recommending that you break it into some installments because we get smarter every time we get a new taxable value. And when I get a new taxable value, I can more efficiently structure your bond payments to your needs. If I sell it all at once, I have to make these very, very conservative assumptions and push bonds out and push bonds out. But if I have real data and real benchmarks, I can push those bonds up into that. So there's efficiency gains with data gains, if you will. So hence the reason why the majority of districts issue their bonds in installments. Moving to the last slide is preliminary schedule of events. So if you work backwards, August 27th is our target bond closing date. This is a preliminary schedule subject to change. Not to get too much off on a tangent, but there's still a study at the state level of whether or not we're going to treat you as hold harmless with the first bond payment or the closing of the bond itself. That makes a difference to us in a detail with your administration, but right now this is the schedule that we're following. So your next board meeting is July 28th. At that time, we will be asking you to adopt the order authorizing the issuance of bonds and delegating authority to the administration to complete that first bond installment. That first bond installment will occur very, very quickly after that because we have that end of August deadline to close. Working your way back, around mid-July, we're hoping to have the first bond installment established. And then working your way back, we'll be visiting with the rating agents here, establishing our ratings, putting out disclosure documents, getting the permanent school fund guarantee, et cetera, but all leading to a July 28th board adoption, and then very shortly after there, a first bond sale, and then a bond closing 3 to 4 weeks after that. So that's the schedule for this summer. So with that, there may be some things that I may have missed in the presentation that would be relevant to the discussion, but if y'all have any questions, I am more than happy to answer.
I have one quick
those.
question.
Yes.
So say, for instance, in August, we determined 75 million is the right amount to issue. And so the following year, when you issue additional bonds, would that 75 million fall within the hold harmless from the 100,000 to 140, which that that estimate's 192 million, so that basically wouldn't be part of the calculation going forward?
Yes, all of the bonds that are not sold this summer will not be a part of the hold harmless calculation going forward.
Correct, but when we're looking at our bond capacity going forward, when you're calculating that capacity, are you kind of, is this 75 million not really part of that calculation since it's within that?
Yeah, it's
hold
gone.
harmless? Okay.
It's gone.
So it's in
And
a,
it's gone except with the one caveat that it's, instead of having tax-based revenues, I have hold harmless revenues, but only for the first installment. And then also the hold harmless for the prior ones. So you're talking about an enormous spreadsheet that's now for 1,000 school districts in the state of Texas of which of these bonds are in which hold harmless and what's the calculation. But yes, to your point, once that value's gone, it's growth that I don't have for the next installment and the next installment. For our growing districts, sometimes it gets blended in. When you go back to your math, we're actually increasing our value. The district that I presented at 5 o'clock today before I came here, they're losing value. So we're shifting value from that column to hold harmless to this column. Fortunately for them, they're kind of a one and done style of district, although we're going to split theirs into 2 installments, but theirs is smaller, like 58 million, and we can sell 38 million of that to get started. They only have a second installment somewhere down the road.
but given they hold harmless, it's in our benefit to issue as much as we reasonably can. Otherwise, we forfeit that hold harmless payment on that additional amount.
That's right. We're balancing this, exactly, issue as much as we can without overstretching ourselves on the other categories, without violating federal tax law. Exactly.
I mean, the only
And-
downside is you're paying interest for a couple months that you wouldn't normally pay.
That's correct.
But you give up the hold harmless for the life of the bond.
That's correct, too. Welcome to my world of balancing. Bouncing. To put it in perspective, how much is the hold harmless? You take the taxable value lost, you divide it by your overall taxable value, and you come up with a percentage. This is in very, very simplistic terms because it changes over time. But then that percentage, which in this district, let's call it 5%, is then applied to the payments of the existing bonds, okay? And so 5% sounds like, well, that's not much, but if you have a $10 million payment, it's $500,000. That's real money. When you look at your schedule, I can almost have $10 million of payments in the first year. So immediately out of the blocks, I can get $500,000. But why do I not just push everything in? Well, because then the interest is flowing up and I'm having to meet the growth target, so I'm reducing bond payments, and that 5% becomes less and less in the meat of your bond program. And what I mean by the meat is we got to sell bonds each and every year. And so if I have a very small payment on the first installment to allow more payments when the growth comes, that 500,000 then drops down to, say, 150,000. Then it's 150,000 for 3 or 4 years, and then it goes back up. But it's over the life of those bonds.
So refresh my memory, the refunding terms are always 10 years, or is it different by different tranche of bond that you issue?
For the most part, the starting point is 20, 25, and 30-year bonds have a standard 10-year optional redemption. There are times when we will have a variation of that. If I have a 15-year bond or a 10-year bond for, say, capital items for a property wealthy district, then we may have a 7-year call. I can take you to cases where we do what is called a variable rate bond, a soft put bond, where I will lock in an interest rate for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. At the end of that period, we have to put those bonds back, but we don't have to put back all of those bonds. We can put back less, and therefore it's got a prepayment in 3 years. That is likely a candidate for this district. Probably not out of the blocks because we're really, really trying to see how the hold harmless and the taxable value materializes, and it's happening as we speak. But I can see some of this extra flexibility to you. For some of my districts who don't have bond elections outstanding, maybe one bond that was issued a long time ago, when they do a new bond, say for $100 million, they don't have any outstanding bond call flexibility. So therefore, it will be more incumbent upon me to put one of those 3-year calls on theirs. In your case, we're going to probably want that flexibility, but you have some call flexibility from existing bonds that we can utilize for that. But to your point, the bonds that are not held harmless may be the bonds we want to pay off sooner than the ones that are held harmless. And so that is another layer of complexity to managing the debt levels in this district. So higher coupons, date that they're outstanding, the length of time that they're outstanding, where our new bonds are going to be a longer amortization than our existing bonds. So if you call in a 5% bond that's 25 years out, you're going to get a lot more interest savings than if you call a bond in that's 5% that only has 2 more years to maturity. So all of those are factors that go into the studies and recommendations for debt management in this district. I'm not tooting my own horn, but it is a pretty complex set of spreadsheets and analysis that kind of go into this kind of artwork that gets us to where we need to be. In the short term for this summer, our balancing act is going to be how much bonds can we get in for hold harmless, meet the state law, meet the federal law, et cetera, without getting out in front of our skis, right? I mean, you just turn on the news and there are all kinds of factors that could put us in a different macroeconomic environment tomorrow than we are today. That's a fact that we live in. No one was telling you that we're going to go from 4% average interest rate on the BBI to 5.25%, but that's what happened, right? And so there are all kinds of economic shocks that are at no control of anyone in this district that can impact our decisions going forward. But this summer, our focus right now is to balance the issuance of bond for hold harmless, maintaining bond capacity so that we don't get out in front of our skis, and balancing the interest cost versus the interest earnings on the construction fund. All of those are factors that go into this. In the short term, I think, you know, from my perspective, I would start by issuing some bonds from each of the propositions, waiting on more defined, if we have more defined information. Someone might take that, oh gosh, they're issuing bonds from whatever proposition is athletic. Athletics are always priority. No, that's me talking about issuing a small portion so that you can move forward when you're ready to move forward. It's not me defining a priority for you. I already know where the priority is. I can see it in the way this program was formulated and where the propositions are. But if I issue $700,000, which is a small amount, it's because it's a small amount for a very specific project. It's not because that is a priority over anything in Proposition A. It's because I don't want you not having that money when it's time to contract for that service. So I'm starting from a blank slate, and I would pull some from each proposition, but by mid-July, there will be conversations with the administration to say, okay, let's get a ballpark. This is horseshoes here that we're throwing because it's not going to be exact of what we're going to spend in the next 12 to 18 months.
At the beginning of your presentation, we talked about the excess INS funds that we would need to make a plan for. Would that be also part of your July presentation, is what our initial thought is that we will do with the excess INS funds?
Yes, yes. And it could be that we postpone some use of that we get to a balanced INS budget this year, so no additions to that. But we have a lot of unknowns. I mean, if I can be honest, when I have gray hair for a reason, I don't sleep well for a reason, it's because I worry a lot. And there's plenty to worry about in a summer following a legislative session. What is our certified values going to be? How's the state and the TEA going to implement the hold harmless? How are they going to read it? All of those are, again, data that comes to me. So we may use some of it, but probably not be just a bulk drawdown all at once. But it will be a part of this plan of finance.
How do future refundings affect existing hold harmless bonds? Is it from the original issuance, or do refundings cancel that out?
No, so when you look at the state's database and they have to keep track of the pedigree of each bond and to determine which is qualified for this program or that, it's very, very complicated because we do refinance bonds. Virtually every bond in the state of Texas will eventually be refinanced. That's a fact that I've seen anecdotally over time, okay? But to your point, if we do this bond this summer, and it's therefore in the hold harmless category for this summer's increase to the homestead exemption, it will forever be there, even if we refinance it for savings. They will apply their percentage to our reduced debt service after the refunding, not to the original debt service, but it will still qualify.
Additional questions? How are we doing?
That was a tremendously thorough presentation. So thank you. I enjoyed every minute of it. And I'm glad you worry about it so that we can worry a little bit less.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in a
Wonderful.
month or so.
Thanks for having. Any additional things on the bond program? All right, we will move to agenda item 13, and we will have a presentation on Operation Unite. Mr. Percival.
Good evening. So we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we wanted to provide an update to the board of the 2025 Operation Unite. This was an event that was hosted here in the district on June 2nd. It was hosted over at Sloan Creek Intermediate, used to be middle, Intermediate School. And I've got Director Littlefield here. I'm going to have him go in to detail of what that day looked like. But before we kick it off, I did want to just take a moment to kind of lay out the weeks and months of design and planning that went into this event. Casey and his team did a lot of behind-the-scenes work, planning and coordination, both with local, regional, state, and federal first responders and law enforcement. And so it was a very well put together program, something that we can loop back around and build on to really use as a foundational tool moving forward. So I want to publicly thank Casey and his team for all the work behind the scenes that went into this. And with that, Mr. Littlefield, why don't you go in and talk to us a little bit about the details, kind of what we did that day, and maybe some of the outcomes.
All right. Good evening, Board and Superintendent Cordell. Our goal here with Operation Unite, which has always been to unite efforts amongst school officials, marshals, law enforcement, and our fire and emergency management partners, including our school officials as it relates to emergency management. Typically and historically, we've always invited Fairview Police and Fire, Lucas, and our Collin County partners. However, this year, we extended that invite to the Allen Police Department. Obviously, they're very close to specifically our high school in Willow Springs. We included the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We had an official here from the Dallas ISD Police Department because, again, their experience in emergency management is really, really broad. And we also, I worked in collaboration with Collin County's emergency managers, the Texas Division of Emergency Management, and as well as DPS. And there were a few of those that were unfortunately couldn't attend the event due to scheduling conflicts, but we were fortunate enough to get our Fairview and our Lucas partners, as always, as well as the Allen Police Department, the FBI, and Dallas ISD School District. And specifically this year, it was important for me to bring in command-level decision makers. It's one thing to bring in just, policemen and firemen that support the community, but to get decision makers in the room so that they can understand kind of our role as school marshals, specifically how we would respond, and so that I can also start kind of feeding them information about what we would expect from them as they respond onto our campuses. And so fortunately for us, all of the people that attended were command level decision makers. And so we were fortunate to sit down during these tabletop exercises and have pretty good conversations. We broke the tabletop into two modules, one being an active attack and one being a remote reunification. There were three groups at each module, or I'm sorry, there were three groups total. There was a law enforcement table, there was an emergency management and Lovejoy ISD cabinet table, and then there was a school official table, which included what we call a district safety action team. It's our principals and our directors, subject matter experts in particular areas of the school district. And through those conversations, We were able to have facilitators and evaluators that were listening in and giving recommendation and guidance and taking notes along the way. We utilized 10 core capabilities and objectives from FEMA, so this wasn't something we just made up. We took the advice of FEMA and used some good discussion points. And overall, we just focused on things such as, for me, as an example, at the law enforcement table, I was able to thoroughly review our school marshal program, our response, our protocols, what I would expect. I'll give you an example. If Allen Police Department were going to respond tomorrow to one of our schools, I would want them to know, and I would want them to broadcast to their officers that we already have armed marshals on site. This is what you should be looking for when you get there, so that there's no confusion when they show up if they're not familiar with our marshal program. And so I was very thorough in describing our marshal program, and got a lot of great questions and feedback from that. And then emergency management table, there was a lot of talk about school response, unified command, the immediate district needs that the district would have as far as our cabinet level members. And then at the district safety action team table, things included evacuation protocols, reunification protocols, busing, transporting, all the things that you can imagine that would go into a large-scale effort like that. So ultimately, we had great feedback. There were a lot of good notes taken. I think it's very valuable to get people in the room together. So oftentimes, that's not their primary focus. It's always a focus, but it's important to get them in there and to get them thinking. And so this kind of event obviously builds a strong foundation for those of us tasked with emergency management, and specifically as it relates to relationship building and trust. And so we were very pleased with the turnout this year and happy with the event. So any questions that y'all have?
Thanks for doing that and getting everybody together. And
Absolutely.
It sounds like a tremendous event. I'm really excited to hear about that level of preparation. It only makes us stronger as a district.
I want to thank Mr. Littlefield and Mr. Percival, and then all of our law enforcement first responder partners, our principals who are here this evening, and cabinet. Everyone was there to learn and to proactively prepare, and it speaks volumes, Casey, to your leadership, that we had the representatives from these different areas there. Your team has done a tremendous job of building trust and relationships with our partners, and to see that circle expand for the benefit of our students and our staff is really incredible.
Thank you.
Great job.
All right, we are now on to agenda item number 14. Open a public hearing on the 2025-26 budget and proposed tax rate. In accordance with Texas law, we will now open the public hearing to provide an opportunity for public comment on the proposed district budget and tax rate for the upcoming year. Mrs. Taylor, do we have any public comments at this time?
No, ma'am.
Wonderful. Therefore, the first order of business in this hearing is going to be agenda item 15, presentation on the 2025-26 budget and proposed tax rate by the district administration. Mr. Volleman.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Cordell. So tonight, we will share our final presentation before your consideration and the work put into developing the 25-26 budget. The process began in December of 2024 through early June with 7 budget workshops. With each budget workshop, we sorted through the changes in budget assumptions while navigating the landscape of a legislative session. So before we dive into the 25-26 budget, I do want to review where we believe the district will end in the 24-25 year. So based off of where we believe that we're going to end the year and the budget amendment that you approved in the consent agenda, we believe that we will end with a surplus of $548,000, almost $549,000. This is a change from what we presented at the end of May, the May regular meeting. And the big change in this are really 2 items. One being that as we finalized our last 6 weeks enrollment ADA data, we had improvements, and we also received additional data at the end of May, early June from TEA that impacts our funding. So we anticipate that we're going to get additional state funding of almost $219,000 more than we originally anticipated. And then also, you may recall at the June board workshop, we brought forward for you to consider the purchase of 3 Suburbans. due to the delay of the delivery of those Suburbans, we're going to have to shift that purchase from the current 24-25 year budget, and you'll see that we increase the expenditure budget in the 25-26. So it's just a timing of delivery and crossing fiscal years. With that all being said, we anticipate that we're going to end the year with the surplus of roughly 549. So now as we go into the budget discussion, so this slide here is out of order. So I'm going to come back to this slide. This is part of the legislative update slide. So I'm going to skip over this slide and come back to that when we get to the legislative update. So the budget that we're presenting here tonight, again, we are presenting the budget based off, I guess, what now is previous law or pre-89th legislative session. So the assumptions that we have shared in the previous ones that we are moving up our attendance rate based off of where we ended this year, which was 96.03, so 96% for the 25-26 year. And then the annual payroll increase, and also the $25 per month or $300 per year on the district contribution for medical benefits. And then a 2% annual on non-personnel, so supplies, materials, and other related expenses outside of the property and liability insurance increase. In this budget, we still have the contingency of the $300,000. So with that being said, when we look at the 2-year look ahead, we are proposing a deficit budget and the use of fund balance of roughly $2.6 million. That would be a decline in days of fund balance from 177 to 142. And then when we look into the next fiscal year, FY22, it gets us down to 106 days of fund balance. So now, as far as the 89th legislative and the new law, the signing of House Bill 2 by the governor on June 4th, in preparation for the Budget Amendment 1, we just wanted to share kind of where we are anticipating the net impact of House Bill 2 will be to Lovejoy, and what we'll share during the July regular board meeting. So rough estimates that have been provided to us is that we'll see a net impact of roughly $1.4 million, but we'll see a much larger increase in revenue, but also increase in expenditures. So when we bring forth that the Budget Amendment 1, we'll see an increase in both revenue and expenditures. So when we look at the permanent teacher retention allotment, that's more of a in and out. So what we'll receive for that, for the teachers, the $4,000 for 3 to 4 years of experience, and the $8,000 for 5+ years, will increase revenue by the $1.7 million, but also increase the expenditures by 1.7. So now going back to this slide here, just the assumptions that will be made under the House Bill 2 when we bring Budget Amendment 1. So much of the same assumptions that are going to be made when it comes to the non-personnel. So attendance rate being at 96%, inflationary increase on non-personnel, and the property and liability insurance increase. The main difference is going to be the compensation. The compensation amount will increase more than the $635 that we have in the original budget. But also what we're proposing within the compensation plan is a 3% increase. And in order for us to maintain the $1.4 million benefit and not dip into that, we'll be utilizing the contingency and releasing the contingency to focus on being able to provide a 3% increase and then market adjustments as well. So when we look at kind of the compensation assumptions here, so we've broken this out to kind of show where as it relates to the compensation plan, what was funded through new legislation and then what was not funded through new legislation. So the classroom teachers was a big component of the legislation, of the $4,000, $8,000 increase for the district, but then also with the 3%, the minimum of 3% salary increase for returning staff in non-teaching positions, they're only funding $45 per ADA for that. But then when you think about all the things that the district will absorb and is not being funded, so for those teachers that are from 0 to 2 years, we want to also give them increase our salary scale. So where the starting teacher salary is at $60,250. but then also librarians and nurses, returning librarians and nurses, we're also going to honor and give them, since they're on the teacher scale, the $4,000 and $8,000 based off the years of experience. The other component that's not factored in with the funded legislation on the salaries is the mandatory taxes, so the TRS and the FICA and so forth. So we'll have to fund the mandatory taxes associated with those increases. And then there is a differential additional for the funding of the minimum of 3% and also the market adjustment. So additionally here, as far as, you heard from Doug, Mr. Witt today about the impact on Senate Bill 4 and the increase in the homestead exemption. So there's two components with that, the increase in the homestead exemption from 100 to 140,000, but then also the increase in the homestead exemptions for those who are 65 and over and disabled from the current 10,000 to 60,000. So the impact on the M&O, there's not very much of an impact on the M&O side. So what we'll see is that with the decrease in property value, the decline there will also result in a decline in local tax collection, which will then decrease the local share for the amount that we're funded based off of enrollment in ADA, which will result in one of two things, either an increase in state aid or a reduction in recapture. So it will most likely, for our district, we'll see a mixture of both. We're going to see an increase in the state aid on the Tier 1 side, but we'll see a reduction in recapture on the Tier 2 side. As it relates to the INS impact, as Mr. Witt shared, districts will be held harmless in the form of state aid for debt issued or delivered on or before 8/31/2025. So we are required by law to present a proposed functional budget for each of the 3 required funds. So here we're going to show the general fund, the student nutrition fund, and the debt service fund. So this slide presented here reflects the required format that illustrates how the district is budgeting for each of the functional areas. Right now, the district's $300,000 contingency is prorated on a percentage of overall cost for each of the different functions, with the exception of Function 91, which is recapture, 93, which is shared service agreements, 95, the GAEP, and 99 other governmental charges. So when we look at 99 other intergovernmental charges, that's the fee associated that we pay to Collin County for the tax collection. So as for the student nutrition budget, we're anticipating a balanced budget for the 25-26 year. This budget we have included, we wanted to see where we would be with the 3% salary increase that is proposed in the compensation plan. So the student nutrition budget does factor in the 3% increase here. We are able to balance the budget. Right now, we're anticipating to end the current year with a 69 days of fund balance, and we continue to balance building a healthy fund balance to get us to 90 days, while also contributing indirect costs to support the general fund. So in the current year, based off of where we're ending, we are planning on ending the year at the surplus budget, where we are contributing to fund balance. I believe it was roughly $54,000, but then we also contributed some towards indirect cost to support the general fund. Our student nutrition team is exploring different opportunities to increase participation. They are exploring and looking, they've been reaching out to local restaurants and vendors to see if we can partner with them to provide, at least at a minimum at our secondary level, provide a variety of options for our students to hopefully increase our revenue and increase into a surplus budget to build fund balance while also contributing to indirect towards the general fund. And then our final budget is the debt service budget. So here, when we look at the debt service, so the local tax collection right now, this does assume pre-Senate Bill 4 revenues. And then the state program revenues here, this is associated with the hold harmless due to the increase to the $100,000. And then the debt service expenditure, we are anticipating that we are building up based off of what was presented by Mr. Witt, the issuance of the 2025 first installment. of roughly $21.9 million in debt service. So for the general fund, right now, the budget is anticipating the current tax rate of the 1.2552, which is the 24-25 tax rate. The way that it works, that once the values are certified June 25th or 26th, the state will then determine the maximum compressed rate, and then that will drive what we'll bring back in August for you to approve. Now, if for whatever reason the maximum compressed rate actually exceeds the current tax rate, we will have to do another public meeting. We don't anticipate that to be the case with the increased values. Even they will implement the additional $40,000 in homestead exemption in that. We do anticipate that it will be compressed and it will be a lower tax rate. And with that, we do not have to have a public meeting. We just bring forward to the board for adoption in August. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So our current assumptions would be that we adopt a budget at a deficit of 2.6, and then once we are able to implement and/or see these bills implemented, we would reduce that deficit from 2.6 to 1.2 approximately.
Approximately, yes, sir.
Thank you.
So this is somewhat of an administrative exercise for us this evening, if I'm understanding correctly. We need to adopt a budget today based on our requirement to do so by the end of June. But we know immediately we will be looking at some type of budget amendment in July as to add on to Mr. Owen's point, as we continue to work through the impact of this new legislation. Is that correct? So we'll have some, and I see your slide here, your last slide on timeline, is that we would anticipate having some discussions on this again in July and in August as we continue to wrap this up.
That is correct, yes.
Board, are there any additional questions or comments before we close the hearing? And Ms. Taylor, are there any additional public comments? Wonderful. Hearing none, we will now move to agenda item 16, close the public hearing on the 2025-26 budget and proposed tax rate. And proceed to agenda item 17, consider an act on adopting the 2025-26 budget and proposed tax rate. At this time, board, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Owens.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bobo. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, the motion on the table is to adopt the proposed budget and tax rate as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next, agenda item 18, consider an act on the 2025-26 compensation plan. Ms. Koenig.
Good evening, Superintendent Cordell and President McLaughlin. Thank you for having me up here today. I'm super excited with this compensation plan as we discuss it. Of course, our Lovejoy 2030 strategic goal is that we'd create an enhanced comprehension plan to allow for innovative monetary, non-monetary compensation work features that reward highly effective teachers. So that's exactly what we want to do. And some of our goals include recruit and retain top talent, provide competitive salaries, acknowledge increases in TRS healthcare benefits, and I do think that we are doing that with this compensation plan. As Mr. Willman has already shared with you, some of the highlights of this compensation plan include a 3% salary increase for all returning staff, increasing the salary from $57,000 to $60,250, starting salary for teachers, nurses, and all librarians, $4,000 salary increase for teachers with 3 to 5 years of a service, $8,000 salary increase for teachers with 5+ years of service, And then, of course, $25 a month additional district medical insurance contribution. So we're increasing that from $325 to $350, which is very competitive there. I've shared with you our salary schedule for teacher, nurses, and librarians. Of course, they teach 187, they're employed on contract 187 days. And as you can tell, we've increased it from the 57 to the 60,250. And I've listed those up there. So quite a bit of an increase for our teachers, which is pretty exciting for us to do. We do feel like we're in a competitive range. Informally surveying those districts around us, we are within $1,500, $2,000 starting salary, so that was pretty exciting. Also, I shared with you a little bit of information about the district medical care benefit contribution, and where we found that I believe it was actually at our last meeting, budget workshop, we found out that day that TRS Active Care, the plan had gone up about 11%. And so that's when we asked for the $25. So you can see, for example, these are the two most popular plans. We have about 300 employees on these plans. And so for the employee, they were going to increase anywhere from $30 to $50 a month, $60 a month. So we felt pretty good about the $25 out of pocket there. Okay, so employee only is B206 there for those in 220. Also just wanted to kind of share with you other benefits that we have. You know, we still are going to continue telehealth for every employee independence. That's a wonderful program. I know we have employees that use that daily, and it's great for even our employees that have kids off at college and there that they can use that. It's free of charge. We pay for that. It's about $6 a month for all of our employees. We do offer life and accidental death policy for $15,000 worth of coverage, the local days. We also have where they can join sick leave bank. It's a total of 30 days. They can ask for an additional 15 if needed. We let all of our staff children can attend Lovejoy ISD. We provide those transfer bus for employees' children, which is always a plus. The 8 teacher planning days a year. We do have mentor programs for teachers in year 1 and 2. And of course, our foundation, we could not ask for a better foundation. They support us, and we also provide hard-to-fill stipends there. So what I'd like to do is present the compensation plan for you. All of this is, of course, as Mr. Willman had shared, is in the budget that we will be amending a little bit later. So it is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the 2025-2026 compensation plan as presented. Questions for me?
I mean, tremendous work, right? We're very excited about that new starting salary. We're very excited about the legislation that's come through that allowed us to give raises to the teachers. I appreciate all of the work that has probably gone into this document behind the scenes. Board, do we have any additional questions?
Any questions?
Okay, no further questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 2025-2026 compensation plan as presented.
So moved, Mr. Wood.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next item, agenda item 19, consider an act on the 2025-26 TASB Risk Management Fund program renewals. Mr. Woolman.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent Cordell. So now that the Board has approved the 25-26 budget, we have our first item that is due July 1st for the district. And according to Board policy, any cost that exceeds $75,000 must be presented to the Board for their consideration. And with this is the TASB risk management, so it provides us with our property insurance, automobile insurance, liability insurance, and personal and information security insurance. So with that being said, if you may recall that back in June of 2024, we had TASB Risk Management come out and do an appraisal of all of our property. We did see an increase in our property value by over $80 million. So we have insured values of roughly $290 million in this plan. It did increase the cost by roughly $175,000 year over year. We are shopping around, and we did do some initial look to see what other districts were, who they were using, if they were part of TASB risk management or if they were doing something else. And we did receive a couple of quotes in response back where the coverages were very similar or slightly better, but the costs were roughly $180,000 to $200,000 more. So with that being said, the administration recommends that the board approve expenditures of budgeted funds for each of the TASB Risk Management Fund program renewals as follow. So the auto, liability, property, and cybersecurity in an amount not to exceed $685,000. At a later date, we'll get the workers' compensation insurance that usually comes out around August timeframe. But based off of what we've seen in previous years, we do not believe it'll exceed $115,000. Very similar with the unemployment compensation, not to exceed $75,000.
My only question is on the different amounts we have listed for the different buildings. Can we
That's correct.
confirm that if we had a tornado or something come and wipe out the buildings, I know with our bond we just approved that the values are significantly higher. So what kind of, if we got a total loss, because I know a lot of times if the building's listed for 50 million, they'll cover 20% higher than that. Is that the case here?
That, I believe, is the case from my conversations with our TASB contact.
So it's replacement cost, not actual cash value?
I believe that's the case, that it would be replacement cost, but I can definitely look and see and double check. But my understanding from my conversation with her that yes, it would be.
Yeah,
And those values that they used were updated values as of today or original cost basis?
It was as of June of 2024.
Placement values as of today, not original cost basis?
Yeah, I believe so.
You just please confirm that it's I think if you have within, if it's 80% of listed amount, they'll cover up to 100%. You get
Okay.
basically have an extra 20% wiggle room.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Willman, I think you touched on this, but I assume we're experiencing escalated costs in this area. Do you have an estimate year over year of how much higher our insurance costs are?
35%.
35%?
Yes, 35% year over year, and I think it was roughly 20% from 2 years ago to last year. So we are
It's
continuing.
amazing.
The main driver of the increase this year is that the appraised value, the last time we had an appraisal done was, I believe, back in 2020. So the appraised value of 80 million is the main driver on the increase of 175,000.
Has there been any substantive changes in the policy otherwise in terms of what we're covering or the
No, there's not.
components of it or anything
There's
like
not
that?
any changes.
Are we taking advantage of any available discounts or incentives?
Discounts and incentives within the plan. I can double check and see, but I do believe that there are some in there.
I just opened my own house insurance bill this morning, so I definitely feel that.
Would we get a large discount if we increased our deductibles?
Yeah, I believe there is a discount. They typically do provide us with different options if we wanted to increase the deductible. This time around, they did not. But I believe if we increase our deductibles, there would be a discount in the price.
It may be worth just looking at that, not
Okay.
just saying doing it, but just looking at it to see how much savings it is.
All right. Thank you for the questions and the comments, Board. If there are no further questions, I believe the administrative recommendation is included in your board book. It's not to exceed costs, and you will come back, I guess, and give us an update on what the actual cost is. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll entertain a motion.
So, understanding that there's a couple of items that we wanted kind of clarification and double checking, I have no problem with going ahead and moving that we approve the administer recommendation to continue with TASB risk management, not to exceed the values as proposed.
Second.
So moved, Mr. James, second, Mr. Owens. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And agenda item 20, we will have presentations on student achievement. Dr. Tinsley.
Is this the best way to go about doing it? Scrolling down? Or should I go out of it?
And then we control plus. And then just right.
Good evening. Tonight, the campus principals and I will be sharing the 2025 STAR results. You'll hear from the principals regarding student achievement outcomes on their respective campuses. They will share areas of achievement gains as well as focus areas for improvement. You will learn about actions and practices the campus leaders will continue, as well as restructuring and monitoring and support systems to address the needed growth areas regarding student achievement. So as we wrap up the year, we do conduct end-of-the-year progress monitoring meetings with each campus administrative team and curriculum department. And some trends that we discovered as we were looking at reviewing our data include the following. We believe that teachers that were utilizing the LISD curricular documents and aligned instructional resources with fidelity resulted in positive student achievement outcomes and demonstrated steady growth. We also saw a trend that teachers that have implemented systemic processes for assessing student learning more frequently and responded with targeted interventions are demonstrating student growth and have positive student achievement outcomes. In addition, the principals believe that department and grade level teams that regularly analyze student achievement data collectively and provide targeted interventions for students are demonstrating gains in student achievement. An example of that is the 8th grade social studies team, as you've seen over the last several years, have made significant gains with achievement, and that's been very intentional and purposeful for that team. Principals are also seeing a need to provide additional professional development and coaching for teachers of co-teach classrooms. These classes serve IEP entitled students in the general education setting. There is a trend of a significant number of IEP entitled students not meeting expectations on STAR. Students are making growth, however, they're not meeting the expectation of the state exams. We've also observed an overall increase of enrollment of IEP entitled students since 22-23. And then also, it's imperative that our instruction reflects the assessed curriculum. So when our curriculum and instruction and assessment align, we are guaranteeing a viable curriculum for all of our students. So I'm going to start. So the STAR results, this is the timeline of the release dates. Parents will be able to access their state results by logging into the PowerSchool parent portal, and that communication will be sent. And we're going to start off with Lovejoy High School.
Good evening again, everyone. So I'm going to cover these, some of these numbers on a later slide. Just an overview of our English 1 and English 2 scores, and a trend that you'll see when you look at our averages compared to the state, especially in that master's category. We far exceed those expectations, and we've talked a lot in these board meetings, and I've presented a lot on the focus on growth. We do not have those growth measures yet. We'll get those in August. So I look forward to coming in front of you again and sharing some of the good and the bad with everything that we saw this year. So for English 1 and English 2, we did see some growth in the master's and category for both, and I'll touch on that in a later slide, Dr. Tinsley. Our EOC math results. So this is one of our areas that I really want to dig into a little bit more. We did see more students that did not meet in Algebra 1 this school year. So we're looking at that data to see why that was. In biology and U.S. history, These are traditionally some of our higher scoring areas, and statewide, some of the higher scoring areas. But if you look, that's a celebration with our biology team and their success there for sure. Some of the highlights and celebrations, our biology team, 93% of students reached meets or above, which was an increase from 91% last year. Our English 1 and English 2 teams both saw growth in the area of students that mastered, going up by 6% in English 1 and increasing by 6% in English 2. And that was an area of focus for us this year, was focusing in on our English scores. In Algebra 1, we did see an increase in our students that mastered district-wide, going from 66% to 68% mastering. Along the same lines with Algebra 1, 8% of our students at the high school this past year did not meet. Comparably, 1% of our students last school year did not meet. So we had some challenges this school year. We had our special education support in that classroom retired halfway through the school year. And then we had a teacher on maternity leave, so a lot of that was filled, and I'm wondering if that played a little bit of a role in some of those numbers. And then English 1 and English 2, I mentioned before, our focus is on that student growth, and until we have that student growth data, it's really tough to get an accurate picture of how our students did, because the data that we look at today is all achievement. We know our students are high achieving, so I'm really curious to see what that student growth looks like. That'll continue to be a focus of ours. Some areas, oh man, that font's too small. I gotta go to my paper copy. Some areas that we're looking to continue that support is, as Dr. Tinsley mentioned, to make sure that our lesson alignment is aligned with our unit planning guides. A lot of work has gone into those planning guides to make sure they're aligned with the TEKS, so coming up with systems to ensure that is occurring on campus. Intentionality in our master schedule. We're building our master schedules now to make sure that we have strong teams. We want to leverage our teacher leaders on campus to keep moving those teams forward. Implementing systems for student progress monitoring. So our teachers will utilize Aware to track student progress based on common formative assessments, and then for us as campus administration to use that data to drive some of the interventions that we do on a larger scale. Use that data to find early indicators and use our MTSS and PST tools for early intervention. Implement systems to track interventions provided in Leopard Time. One of our areas of growth this year is to ensure that we're utilizing Leopard Time to its fullest potential. Having that intervention period in the middle of the day is a huge benefit for our students. So ensuring that we're assigning those tutorials and using that to its fullest extent. And then the last is really being intentional in that interventions. Our teachers are doing it, but we're not documenting it anywhere. It's hard to track, and we want to add a lot more intentionality into the interventions that are being provided based on those common formative assessments. Thank you all.
Good evening. Looking at the data measures before you for Willow Springs, our campus data indicates a notable increase in the percentage of students achieving masters in performance levels for science, social studies, and Algebra 1 for end-of-course assessments. You will also see an increase in students performing at the master's level in that 8th grade reading language arts. As we move through the data, you'll also see an increase in overall performance in our 7th grade accelerated advanced students. You will also see an increase in student masters category in the 7th grade accelerated advanced. And that is our 7th grade math course that is double blocked over 2 periods. And these scores are indicative of the success of our collaborative efforts with District C&I to ensure that students are placed in the correct math pathway starting out in middle school so that they are set up for success at the high school level. We have worked with our counselors and District C&I to make sure we have parent letters going out and that we are doing a better job communicating making sure that those students that scored in the 60th percentile or above on that 6th grade math star have been reached out to, that those families know what their options are for math courses. We increased our placement into that class, hoping that our data would show that what it did, that we placed the right students into the right accelerated advanced course, and they performed really well. So that was a big celebration for our team. Moving forward to our areas of focus, there are a few key areas that are going to need our strategic focus in the next year. We will need to analyze and respond to the performance of our special population students, especially in the areas of math and reading. This will include not only analyzing their STAR results, but also evaluating performance trends across all core areas for this specific cohort of students. Our campus will be analyzing and responding to the did not meet percentages in the 7th grade math and science categories as well. Similar to the high school, progress monitoring will be a major focus at Willow Springs. Our leadership team is committed to ensuring that all core content teachers will be using a unified progress monitoring tool, similar to LHS, which will be aware to track students' mastery of priority standards. We will hold monthly meetings with our team leaders and administrative team to support that consistent implementation. We did begin implementing that tool at the start of this past school year, but we did not have that unified tool across all of our departments, and that's what we will be moving towards in the next school year. Our intervention efforts will be strengthened through weekly PLCs and those monthly grade level team meetings. A lot of our team meetings were heavily focused on support with student behavior, classroom management, and attendance. Sometimes student data, but we were reserving those conversations for our weekly PLCs, and we are going to start to incorporate student data into monthly grade level teaming when everyone is around the table to enhance those intervention efforts. Teachers as well are going to continue to use the district's unit planning guides and continue to work together to develop high quality common formative assessments, again working on that unified goal with our department leaders. We are also going to be looking closely at our master schedule and campus calendar, and then dedicating time for our core 4 content department leaders to provide that job-embedded instructional support. We did that this past year, but we did not have job-embedded time throughout the school day specifically for these department leaders to be present in those co-teach classrooms to model those instructional strategies, specifically in Tier 1 support, making sure that we're providing those interventions before leopard time. We had a system in leopard time that was working well, but we were seeing that while that was meeting the needs of a lot of our students, it wasn't meeting the needs of all of our students, and that's what our data is showing. We need to intervene before that intervention time. So we are going to be looking for a way in our master schedule that could look like an additional period for those 4 teachers who are master teachers on our campus to use that class period to model instructional strategies, not only for new teachers on our campus, but also veteran teachers on our campus to be able to support them with innovative strategies. So making sure that we have strong Tier 1 instruction for all of our teachers, and that we're utilizing those instructional materials because some of them are new, and some of them are new to even some of our experienced teachers. And our curricular resources were just developed within the recent years, so they're in need of support as well. So with these steps that we're taking, we truly believe we can maximize those instructional minutes and truly help our students excel and respond to some of these gap areas in our data. Thank you.
All right, we're going to talk about Sloan Creek. So I'm glad to be here tonight to talk to y'all about our data and then our next steps for implementation to support our students and our teachers. So if you kind of look at Sloan Creek's overall data compared from last year to this year, we're kind of neutral. We've maintained minimal changes, kind of 1 to 3%, maybe increasing or maybe dropping just slightly. So, but one of our celebrations is we had 7% decrease in the students that did not meet from 2024, like spring of 24 to spring of 25, with the science tests that we did. So minimal changes were in masters and meets and approaches for performance levels. So that also places a high priority on great. We're getting students to pass. Now what do we need to do to take that passing, that approaches to meets, that meets to mastered? So in 6th grade, our accelerated math, that would be our students that are in 7th and 8th grade math in 6th grade. They had a 96% of students that received masters on their STAR test. And that's a 7% increase from the year prior. So that's a huge celebration for those kiddos on that accelerated math path. For 5th and 6th grade reading, overall students kind of maintain that performance level, but a goal is to increase our percentages of the students that scored meets and mastered. And then area of growth, which would just be kind of for all of our students, that our results in increase of percentages from that meets to masters in reading, math, and science. All right, so professional development, building capacity for our teachers. We want to continue to coach and train on the development and the use of our common formative assessments, our CFAs, and student progress monitoring. I think you've seen and heard the trend over tonight of where we all kind of are placing our focus and aligning. A continued training and support for our teachers with lesson planning that result in the rigorous and targeted instruction. And then monitoring of student achievement process. So lead teachers on identifying gaps so that interventions and student supports will be timely and effective. And then administration will refine structures of monitoring student progress. So assisting teachers with utilizing our assessments that inform and identify, student conceptual understanding of our content. And then support implementation of our curricular documents and resources. So guide teachers in understanding clear priorities for instruction, including implementation of aligned documents and resources, best practices, tracking student progress through formal and informal assessment and planning for those interventions to support our students. Continue regular monitoring lesson plans to ensure clear, well-organized, sequential lessons that reflect best practices aligned with standards that are appropriate for our learners. And then strategic calendar and planning. So that's really just protecting our calendar, making sure that we're utilizing all the time that we have with our students and our staff. So campus calendar will reflect a priority on student progress monitoring structures. We're going to lead teachers with planning implementation of our CFAs and then allocating that time to be able to review that so that we can review the results and then plan for our interventions. And then schedule of campus activities and events so that we can protect our instructional time, really looking at our calendar and making sure that we're protecting that instruction time with our students.
Good evening. When you look at Hart's overall data, we're very pleased with the 4th grade results in regards to the increase in the math from 39% master's grade level in 2024, which would have been our 3rd graders last year, to our current 4th graders this year was 65% of them meeting masters. So we were very pleased with those results. Those teachers were definitely using the curricular documents, unit planning guides, in the resources with fidelity, and that's why we feel we yielded the results we did in that area. We also noticed in 4th grade performance that our students who have IEP entitled subgroup, they improved with math in 47% meets to 65% meets, and we also saw an increase in the reading from 82% to 89%. In looking at our 3rd grade performance, we overall want to focus in on our math and reading achievement. We saw a lot of our students fall at the approaches, so we want to make sure that moving from K-1-2 that we're addressing the rigor that our students are going to see when they come into 3rd grade, especially with the writing across the curriculum. As we dove a little deeper, we're noticing that we need to continue to hone in on that writing, professional learning, as it relates to all content areas so that they are more successful in responding to those prompts that are on the 3rd grade reading. An area of focus for us is definitely to increase the number of students who are at the meets and masters level. We want our students at that high achieving levels and to see that 1 year's growth. So our students who fell into the approaches area going into 4th grade, we'll have a heavy focus on looking at them at least moving to meets, but with the goal of masters. And then we're also looking at our special population student data in 3rd grade on both math and reading STAR specifically. And we've already started to address that area where one of our teachers is actually offering a week of summer enrichment to a specified group of students and has already dug into some data to make sure that we're addressing their needs to give them a jump start as they enter 4th grade. As we look at our continued practices that we did find successful, our collaborative learning time is going to stay where us as a leadership team made it a priority to attend those meetings. We focused really heavily this year on building capacity and not as much on the data like we would have liked. So that's a shift that you'll see in the next slide that we will be focusing on during that collaborative learning time. We had an instructional focus, especially in our K through 2 this year with our leadership team and in collaboration with the district coordinators to check on the Tier 1 instruction as well as the instructional materials and unit planning guides that were being implemented. We did have a solid PST process. However, we saw that some of our goal setting with some students, we may not have addressed them not meeting their goals like in the timely manner as we should have. They were making progress, but I think if we could have had a more streamlined process, we would have met their goals a little faster. And then our professional learning, we were proud of the work that we did with our new hires, anyone new to Lovejoy, in building their capacity in previous learning that they've had so that they came in on an even playing field with the teachers who have been in Lovejoy and received those professional learning opportunities. As we look in moving into next year for key areas of strength, our leadership team wants to make it a priority and will make it a priority to be in grade level planning meetings. That's important for us as a leadership team to be able to support the achievement of our students and building the capacity of our teachers as they work through the unit planning guides and the instructional resources, which will also allow us to give that timely feedback through learning walks and observations for our teachers, which they crave. Refinement of our progress monitoring systems, like I said, we had progress monitoring systems, and like you've heard from our other administrators, it's refining those practices that they're more timely, they're more proactive in meeting the needs of our students in regards to meeting more regularly. So we've already started mapping out our calendar to make sure all of the assessments are on the year to date, as well as when we're having our data meetings, as well as with our collaborative learning time, building in a once-a-month progress monitoring checkpoint that us as a leadership team, which would also include our counselor, are there to respond to the needs of our students, whether they're high achieving or need additional support. And then we are also continuing to look at professional learning and building the capacity of utilizing our CFAs. We're really good at giving our formative assessments and checking for that understanding, but then we want to take it that step further of how are we using that data to constantly change groups, share students, so that we are meeting the needs of all of our students, both who need intervention and enrichment.
Thank you. Mrs. Haynes could not be here with us tonight, so I'll be sharing her findings. So for 3rd grade performance, the campus observed an increase in master's performance from 24-25 in math and also in reading. They did see a decrease in meets performance in math compared to 24. 4th grade performance increased in master's performance in math, steady with meets performance in math, and they saw a decrease in the reading master's performance for our 4th grade students. They want to celebrate no repeat STAR failures from 3rd to 4th grade. So students who were 3rd graders did not repeat that in 4th grade, reflecting what the campus believes reflecting our effective support system and targeted interventions. Students, IEP entitled students in co-teach settings continue to show notable growth and achievement, and the emergent bilingual students, which was a goal in the Puster Campus Improvement Plan, exceeded the goal for meets level with a stronger indicator of successful instructional supports and differentiation. Focused continued practices will be continued monthly progress monitoring meetings, the problem-solving team, goal setting, and consistent progress monitoring for students that are struggling. Visible data and use, you heard from when you were there at the campus for the board workshop, Ms. Haynes talked about their data wall and how they chart progress of students, and it's visible for the team to collectively accept that responsibility. Collaborative planning, the instructional leadership team participating as Shannon was saying will be a priority for the campus as well too. Also another area which you've heard this theme is that ensuring that teachers are utilizing the curricular resources documents that we have with fidelity and application of the common formative assessments, which basically means more frequent assessment, that might not be a written assessment, but just checking for understanding more frequently so a teacher can respond and not wait until the student has a formal assessment on that. Also, helping the teachers understand the purpose of CFAs and highlighting bright spots on the campuses and understanding the alignment of assessment with our curricular resources and documents. And then some planning shifts, shifting from what to teach to how to teach. So what is the conversation looking like when teachers are coming to planning? So what is learning going to look like with delivery? Grade level teams will establish planning roles and come prepared with knowledge of upcoming lessons, so there's preparation prior to coming to planning, and then a utilization of the curricular documents and unit mapping that we have in place. In addition, the campus has addressed to pre-select dates, so some pre-planning, so ensuring that it's a priority that when teams are reviewing student achievement data, that it's a focus time for whether it's the leadership team leading it or it's the grade level team leading it, that those are on the calendar and they're being held. Also, ongoing professional development in areas such as the CFAs and MAP growth data analysis. And we've had a focus of writing across the curriculum, but how is the campus going to monitor and ensure that that's happening in the classrooms, either through learning walks or lesson plans, and then a continued use of vertical and cross-grade level collaboration, which the campus implemented this year. So just kind of going in a timeline from 22-23. So STAR 2.0, 22-23 was the first year that the assessment was administered. During that year, we did a pretty deep dive as a district in looking at our curricular resources, which would be curriculum documents that the district had created, and also instructional resources. And that could be instructional resources that would be textbooks, but it also could be technology. So we were really looking at where our strengths were, where our gaps were, and where there was misalignment. We also involved teachers that summer to assist with summer curriculum writing. We initiated the professional learning communities framework. We also focused on, with our staff as a district, of understanding professional learning communities and the importance of implementing common formative assessments. We did an extensive inventory of our instructional materials. We identified a significant number of resources that did not align with the assessed curriculum and did not meet the rigor of the state assessments, and identified resources that we needed to do to supplement that for our teachers. And then we also identified that there were definitely misalignments between the taught curriculum and the assessed curriculum. So again, that goes back to how we were shifting to prepare our students for the new assessment. Was the instruction, or were we still doing prior instruction that was happening prior to 22-23? 23-24, that's the year that we developed the instructional frameworks, and that's really our philosophy of our belief system in the core content areas. We continued work on professional learning communities. 23-24 was the year we implemented and trained staff on our balanced assessment plan. We also determined as we wrapped up the year, that we needed a more structured curricular framework to support alignment and ensure a guaranteed and viable curriculum, and also a stronger support system for teachers with comprehensive planning. So whether it was a veteran teacher or a new teacher, we had a common curricular resource that our teachers could access. So we Also implemented that year MAP growth assessment, and then we continue to look at improving alignment of curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And then for this year, we have refined our structures for progress monitoring of student achievement. So what we have had in place is that we've had a beginning, middle, and end of the year where the curriculum department has worked directly with campuses, analyzing data, hearing from our campuses on the progress that they're seeing, and putting measures in place to help support our campuses with moving forward. We developed the unit planning guide, and that goes back to needing a more structured framework. So we were actually writing those ourselves because we felt like we needed to customize those to Lovejoy ISD. So since it was being done during the school year, we actually utilized our curriculum content coordinators to actually write those curriculum guides for every core content area. So leading to this summer, what we have been doing is that we are enhancing those with increased intervention resources for our teachers. We're adding GT strategies into the documents, and we're adding enhanced resources as well. Unit planning guides are also being developed for fine arts, electives, and CTE courses. So it's going to look the same for any course or grade level that a teacher would teach, and I've shared with you samples of those unit planning guides. And that also creates some sustainability for us over time. So if a teacher leaves the district, the curriculum they wrote doesn't leave with them, is something that we own as a district, and we can continue to build on that and enhance it. And we've had over 65 teachers that have been working this summer on curriculum writing to help us either enhance the current documents, but also develop some of those in the areas that we did not have the unit planning guides. So I just want to come back again, the importance of having a guaranteed and viable curriculum. It ensures that we have a defined content and skills are consistently taught across grade level and courses, regardless of the individual teacher. So we know that that's a consistent resource that we have that our teachers are working from. The goal is to ensure that every student has equitable access to the same high-quality content. And the viable curriculum ensures that sufficient instructional time is allocated to effectively teach the identified essential content and skills. So this means that this aligns with ensuring that we have bell-to-bell instruction going on. The overall structure of the school day, you're going to see similarities from classroom to classroom, course to course, and department to department. And then it provides adequate times for students to develop a deep and thorough understanding of the critical components and competencies required of the course. And just a reminder what the 7 components are of a guaranteed and viable curriculum, which are all in our unit planning guides. There's a scope and sequence. There's a learning standards clarification guide, which basically what that does, it breaks it down for the teacher. What is that telling me I need to teach the student, so it breaks it down. It does have learning standards vertically aligned pre-K through 12, so we have prerequisite skills we're ensuring that are taught along the way. It has an instructional focus tool, which is our unit planning guides. And I'm going to go back. We've got to have alignment with the taught curriculum, with the assessed curriculum. It allows for feedback systems from our teachers, students, leaders, and parents, and we make it transparent and full visibility for our student learning and progress. So as a district, we will continue to support campuses with the implementation of our guaranteed and viable curriculum. We'll support and guide campuses in understanding the clear priorities for instruction and assessment and best practices in the classroom. We will continue to support and guide campuses and best practices for tracking student progress through formal and informal assessments. Support and guide campuses in planning for relevant and targeted interventions to improve student achievement. There's a strong partnership with campus leaders with monitoring of instruction, tracking of student progress, providing feedback and support as needed, reviewing and refinement of our curricular documents and resources, and then providing professional development and coaching for our staff. So a lot of information there. So we'll open it for questions, and if you have any questions for our principals, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer those too. I just want to say thank you to the CNI team and especially our principals. I really appreciate you presenting the data, but also really tackling any gaps you see and presenting those solutions to us. Dr. Tinsley, you mentioned some trends at the beginning of the presentation about teachers using the guides. Is class size one of the things we're looking at? I know specifically at Hart and Puster, we had to approve a lot of waivers last year just with our funding challenges. So I'm curious if class size is something we'll be looking at as we look further into the data. I think class size is something that definitely came up in our conversation, even if you compare it back to prior to 21. You know, whenever Lovejoy Elementary was open, our class sizes were much smaller at that time. So most definitely when you're going to an average of 15 students per class up to 22, that's going to make a difference for our teachers as well. However, and I'm going to let Mrs. Koenig kind of talk a little bit more about averages. We do have some averages of our class sizes, and I prefer you talk about that if you don't mind, to kind of give you a number of what those numbers look like.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do look at class sizes. We staff knowing that we had some financial concerns and knowing that we were going from an 8 to 7 period day, we staffed on 23, and I do look at class sizes. And also I look at what we think our class is going to be at the beginning of the year. So when we're going into August, constantly looking at enrollment there. So when I reviewed it, and then I just kind of took the beginning, the first day, so the first day of school, the first day of the second semester, and the last day of school, and just kind of averaged those through the year. They were very comparable. Overall, Hart was about 22.5, and Puster was at 21.7. So less than maybe a child or two. There were some grade levels heavier. However, there are also some residents that we put, like I know at kindergarten, Ms. Herwick, she had a larger class, but she had a resident in there. So we look at that too. So when we looked at the averages, it looked like Puster, their kindergartens were at 22, 23. However, at Hart, they were at 20, 21, 20 and first grade at Puster, 23 at Hart, 22, 23, second grade at Hart, 21, 22 at Puster. Third grade across the board was right about 23, and 23 at Hart for fourth grade and 22 at Puster. So they're very, very close. You know, what's also somewhat difficult is when you're looking at, so, you know, like one section's 22, two's 44, if you're looking at 22, 366. So you're also looking at, can we afford to have, because it would have made like 13 or 14 in the class, and is that the best use of money? But yes, we continue to monitor it and just trying to get close to that, you know, we want that 22 to 1 ratio.
So a follow-up, I think specifically on that, I think maybe a different way of asking the question that Ms. Stock asked. Would we be able to dig into the data, given those averages you've just presented by campus, and see how maybe some of these changes in our growth, either by cohort or by campus, or I don't even know if we get down to specific classroom detail on data, but how these changes and averages might have changed some of our expectations on the results year by year. So if we're seeing changes in the averages 1 year over next within the same cohort, but they're not exhibiting the same results that we would have expected previously, maybe we can dig into that data further as well. As we get the growth metrics in the August meeting, et cetera, that could be another layer that we're analyzing.
Definitely.
Are there any other questions, Board?
Just thank you for all the work that's gone into the thought. Thank you to the principals for the work and service. So we're grateful for all that you're doing to have that continuous improvement mindset and to keep moving the ball forward. That's really what we're here for.
Echo that. I know just a few PowerPoint slides probably just overshadow the amount of work that went in to analyze that data and prepare for tonight. So we appreciate the overview. It was very informative. Right. We are now on agenda item 21, consider an act on updates to the District of Innovation Plan. So Board, this is a follow-up item. We first reviewed the proposed updates to our DOI plan at our May 9th, 2025 meeting. Tonight, the item before us is consideration and action. Ms. Koenig.
No, you're fine. Yes, this is just a follow-up from our May meeting. Once again, just as a review, District of Innovation concept was passed by the 84th Legislative through House Bill 1842. It basically allows us to establish, distinguish our district with some exemptions to Texas Education Code, and just wanted to make sure that you knew that our current District of Innovation, it is currently, we don't have to redo the plan because it is good till 2026, April of 2027, excuse me. I recommended 2 exemptions, or what they are called. One is on the out-of-district transfers. And so basically what we're allowing an exemption for is if a out-of-district student, with our Lovejoy Scholar programs, we currently have about 330 students that are going to be in that program for next year. So if a student or parent is not meeting the requirements set forth in the district's transfer policies, procedures, regulations, we monitor attendance, behaviors, those types of things, and the district will revoke the transfer prior to the end of the school year at any time in the best interest of the district. So that's one of the recommendations I'm asking for there, is a revoke of the transfer. And the other one is also looking at our intern probationary certificate. So if we have a brand new teacher that is in an alternative certification program and they go on an intern certificate for 1 year, usually we would put them on a probationary contract. We're asking to put them on an employment agreement, which is an at-will employment agreement rather than that probationary contracts, and it just gives us more of an opportunity to work with them and then make a recommendation for a contract, a probationary contract after that. Basically, on May 13th, we reviewed our current plan. I proposed additional DOI exemptions. We also had those voted on to amend. So currently, what I'm asking is for the school board to vote on the amended DOI plan tonight. What then happens is tomorrow, or by the end of the week, I'll put a notice of adoption of amended DOI plan B. I have to email it to the commissioner. I also have to put something on our district website and link it with TEA. And then just as I said, so that you're aware, this one would be in effect till April 25th, 2027. Questions for me? On those 2 exemptions.
Any questions, Board?
Yeah, I have one question. If we later determine that we want to adjust this again, we can still adjust this before the 2027 period.
Oh, yes, definitely. In fact, every year, we meet with our DOI committee. We look at possible exceptions to amend, or if we need to, take one off or whatever. But yes, we can several times throughout the year. So if other things come up. Good question.
I make a motion to approve the amended DOI plan.
Motion, Mr. Wheelis.
Second?
Second, Mr. Bobo. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We are now at agenda item 22, consider an act on board member appointment to the Safety and Security Committee. So board, this item relates to board policy CK, Safety Program Risk Management. In accordance with the guidelines established by the Texas School Safety Center, each district is required to establish a school safety and security committee. The membership of that committee is to include the board president and 1 additional board member. I will be joining the committee at its next meeting, and the action before us tonight is to nominate and appoint the additional board representative. So I'll open the floor now for questions, comments, volunteers, or nominations.
I think, Jeff, you've previously served in that capacity?
Yes, and I'm willing to do so again.
I'd be happy to see Jeff continue to serve in that role. So I take that as a nomination.
There you go. Motion on the floor by Jason Janes.
Second?
Second, Mr. Bobo. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Wood. Agenda item, let's see, am I on the right, do we have two 22s tonight? I have the wrong number. 23, agenda item 23, superintendent report, Ms. Cordell.
Thank you. Lovejoy ISD students are on summer break, but Lovejoy ISD educators and staff are not. You saw tonight the important work that's been done in safety and security in regard to Operation Unite. We talked about curriculum writing and 65 teachers being involved in that effort this summer. We have summer camps, both in the fine arts, in athletics, and in the enrichment areas that have been going on. Our principals have been very busy hiring and planning for an outstanding start to next school year, as has Cabinet and their teams and the group of wonderful people over at Central Office. Our custodians have been, and maintenance facility have been busy cleaning and preparing our buildings and facilities for next year. Transportation is cleaning and repairing and updating the buses, getting them ready to roll. And then you, as a board, you have been busy in a special meeting and this meeting tonight, and the rest of this week, you will be in training. So I just want to extend my heartfelt gratitude and bring awareness to all of the efforts that are happening to plan for an outstanding school year next year, and to everyone working so hard. I look forward to you all getting a small window of time off, and during that time, make sure you take care of yourself and your families so that you can get rejuvenated, refreshed, and then we will be ready to be back in July, finishing out planning so that we can have a strong start to the school year.
Thank you, Ms. Cordell. Agenda item 24, public comments related to non-agenda items. Ms. Taylor? Wonderful. And so with that, I do not have any additional announcements this evening. Happy summer. We are adjourned.